Hello, everyone. Hi, how are
Good
you?
afternoon. Hi. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. I think we can start the meeting. I know not everyone is around, but at least I
Should we wait?
okay. I'm thinking we should wait for like some 5-10 minutes and then start the meeting. I
Okay.
don't want to take anybody's time.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. All right. I think that we've waited. Some people have told me that they will be joining us later on in the meeting. So without wasting much time, I would like us to start this edition of PM mock interviews. On these meetings, we meet with technical recruiters who train aspiring product managers to master the recruiting process. And today we have Mr. Yinka Coker from Microsoft. So, but before we start the meeting, I would like to, share some ground rules that we've created to make sure that everyone can participate and benefit from this meeting safely. Okay, welcome everyone. We've established the following rules of engagement to make sure that everyone can participate and benefit safely from the meetings. All attendees are required to treat other attendees with respect, and the use of language that is intended to harass, attack, accuse, insult, or abuse any other person is strictly prohibited. Derogatory or condescending language is not allowed, and the use of language that is insensitive to someone based on race, culture, religion, health, gender, or sexuality is prohibited. Anyone who engages in such will be permanently removed from the meeting. I'll enjoin everyone to avoid using language that will inflame or upset other people. Avoid being negative. Constructive feedback is welcome and will be appreciated by all other attendees. Finally, I reiterate that we'll strictly prohibit hate speech and credible threats, that is, any threat that mentions a specific time, place, and date. Yeah, with that, I think I can hand over to Mr. Yinka Coker now, who selects anyone from the audience and conducts a mock interview session with, after which he will provide feedback, which we'll use to know how to handle such sessions. So over to you, Mr. Yinka.
Hi, Grace. Hi, everyone. Please just call me Yinka.
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh,
Sure, I will.
um, Hi, everyone. My name is Yinka Coker. I'm a technical recruiter at Microsoft, and I guess I spend the best part of my working hours, looking for amazing talent, you know, all over Africa, I guess. Yeah, so I'm here to pick somebody to do an interview with. Um, so looking at the names, I think I'm going to pick Daniel. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, Yinka. Looks like today is my lucky day.
Great to hear. Do you have? But I need to see it. Do you have your CD?
Um, I would like to apologize first. I've just walked in from the gym, and because you're in my network, I saw this popped up, and I decided to connect.
Uh,
But I can share my resume with you.
yeah, if you can just share it with me on LinkedIn, that'll be great since we're connected already. I didn't know that. I can't see any faces. But yeah, send me the CV, please, on LinkedIn if we're connected already, so I can open that. And then while we do that, are you comfortable getting started, like doing some intros?
Yes, I can introduce myself. My name is Daniel Mbea. Currently based in Kenya. Um, I am a student at Georgia Institute of Technology, studying Masters in Computer Science, interested in machine learning. Um, beginning August this month, I'll be joining University of Florida to pursue an MBA degree because I'm interested in shifting from software engineering into product or project management roles. So that's why when this popped up, I decided to join.
Okay, cool. So, tell me a bit about like what's driving your, your interest or your passion, for product management. So, if I understand, you currently have a bachelor's degree in computer science.
Yes, my bachelor's degree was in computer science.
Okay. So yeah, what was the motivating factor for you to consider like typically somebody like you would probably end up as a software engineer, so in a related field. So what's the motivating factor to, to transition to a PM role?
So I've spent about the last 7 years working as a software engineer, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. But I've reached this point in my career where I feel like I can be able to contribute more to businesses that I work for by doing more than just concentrating or building tools. I want to move into this space where I can interact with people and get to influence people and the way product is developed. And just having a broad overview of how the tools that I was building as a software engineer impact the entire business. So that's what is really pushing me towards product management.
Awesome. So, tying into that a bit more, um, what have you done so far? Besides the degree program you're trying to do, what have you done so far? To build some competencies or your knowledge or skill set in the PM area.
I think to begin with, I've done a couple of things. And the very first one is talking to people who are already doing product management. And these are people working in different companies, just getting to understand what product management is all about and the skills that are required for one to be successful in product management. Other than that, I've looked at some of the courses on LinkedIn, and there's an introduction to product management. There is a product roadmap, and courses similar to that. I've started reading, researching, and taking such courses, and gotten a few certifications on that. So those are my steps towards this role.
Okay. Awesome. Well, since you come from a technical background, I think we can do a bit of technical questions. Are you aware of like SDLC?
Yes, that's software development lifecycle.
Yeah. So, in your experience so far, can you just tell me a bit about that? Like, what SDLC is all about, in, your opinion?
Um, so I will share this with regard to my previous experiences. So the software development life cycle is all about the entire journey that a software product goes through. And this is from the point of requirements elicitation, where you get to understand the problems that this software is going to solve, the users, you talk to them, interview them, and gather information about their pain points and their desires and stuff like that. And then you go through a planning phase where you design or plan the software, breaking it into bits, smaller tasks that can be implemented. And then there is a technical design where we have mock-ups that designers will come up with, and engineers will start charting out the smaller tasks that were developed. And then they build the software, and then it will go through a testing phase, then gather feedback, improve, remove, add a few features, go through quality assurance again, testing, and then when everything is okay, the product is shipped to the market. And then we gather feedback from the end users, and then iterate the process again.
Excellent. Awesome. So let's talk a bit about agile. Have you had any experience like being in an agile environment, or just following agile best practices, or deploying agile methodologies like you know in any environment? And if you have, can you tell me a bit
Yes.
about your experience with it?
My connection was not very clear, but you want me to share some of my experiences in the agile environment?
Yes, correct, please.
Yes. So an agile environment is quite interesting, such that software engineers or software tasks are planned in terms of what we call sprints. And the sprint sometimes would cover, like from my experience, the sprint would cover a period of 2 weeks. So tasks would be planned at the beginning of 2 weeks, and software engineers would be assigned their task. And this is to build a product that is intended to be completed within 2 weeks. So the agile methodology breaks the software into smaller bits that can be implemented within a short period of time, and then feedback is received. So um, generally, that's the experience I've had with an agile environment. And of course, it involves having daily stand-ups where you just share what you were doing yesterday, what you'll be doing today, what you plan to do tomorrow, and if there is anything that is blocking you, you share it with the team.
Okay, cool. Do you have any experience with data modeling?
No, from work experience, I've not done data modeling. Yeah, I've not done any serious data modeling.
Yeah, that's okay. Do you have any experience doing any kind of business analysis, like gap, SWOT, ROI, anything in those areas?
Theoretically, in class, yes, but in a career environment, I've not done that.
Yeah, and okay, let's talk a bit of theory. It's still knowledge. Theoretically, if we're to, walk into a role as a business analyst or a program manager, and you were to carry out the business analysis of what the, strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats of a product you're trying to build are. Just I'm just trying to pick your brain to see, structurally what your process flow would look like. If that was a task that landed at your desk, what would be your approach towards conducting a SWOT analysis theoretically?
Do we have a specific product in mind that we can use as an example?
Yeah, you can use what's your favorite product right now?
Right now, my favorite product is GitHub.
GitHub. Okay, perfect. So we have one product to use. So yeah, if you're going to do a SWOT analysis on GitHub, what would be your approach? How would you go about it?
Hmm. What's the intended end product?
In this case, you're just, looking at it and coming from the side of like a researcher, basically, and you're trying to. We're all speaking theory here, so you've
Yes.
not had any practical experience doing this. But I'm saying, even without having a practical experience doing it, at least you understand what a SWOT analysis is, right? So if you're going to, for example, be making a similar product, to GitHub, how would you go about, iterating what you think the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats would be, based on your experience using, a product like GitHub? So we're gonna do something similar.
Okay. So basically, we'll be looking at some of the strengths that GitHub has as a product right now. And then we want to look at some of the weaknesses that GitHub has currently. And then we try and identify opportunities that the company can be able to take advantage of in order to improve GitHub as a product. And of course, talk about the competitive space that GitHub is in, right? So as at the moment, I think GitHub is the leader in terms of code management because it's strongly used by software engineers to version their code and be able to contribute to the same code base without blocking other people or without risking losing your code because it's hosted in the cloud. So a very good strength that GitHub has as a product right now is it's won the confidence of programmers and software engineers, and very many companies are taking advantage of GitHub as a product to version their code and to also just maintain their repositories online and avoid the risk of losing. Another advantage that it has is for the open source market, because GitHub hosts code in the cloud. Basically, anyone can be able to access it. So if you have a project that is asking for people to contribute from different corners of this world, then GitHub definitely has the advantage in that because guys can be able to contribute to repositories regardless of the geographical location. Looking at the weaknesses that GitHub has, I do not see a lot of weaknesses other than might not be very convenient for people who are outside the programming or software engineering space. Case in point is a designer, for example. If designers want to work on the same design, want to collaborate, they want to be interacting with each other and version their designs, GitHub at the moment does not offer this as a product necessarily. And that goes into the competitive space that we are in. And companies like Figma have identified this, and they've started developing products that allow designers to version their designs and collaborate in the cloud. So that's a weakness I've seen in terms of a market that is not being covered. And to tie together with the competition, I'm seeing companies like Figma coming in and taking advantage of that. Yeah, those are some of the things I'd talk about.
Okay, awesome. Looking a bit more down the products, rabbit hole. I want to, talk a bit about like how many years of experience do you have in total?
I've been working as a software engineer since 2013, so that should be about 7 years.
Okay, great. So, can you tell me about like a day, everything went wrong, at work, and looking back now, how did you handle it, and what should you have done differently?
Yes, so is this time you work on a product and it's working perfectly fine in your local environment, and then you're pretty sure the code is solid, and then it's shipped or moved to the server environment, and then you realize your code is not functioning in the server environment like it was working in your local environment. And this is a product that was we were running short on time, so basically at the tail end of it in terms of time, and we didn't have a lot of allowance to be able to cover or rectify our mistakes. So it ended up delaying a product that was to be launched, and that fell completely on me. So what happened is afterwards we realized our local environments might have certain installations that facilitate our code running that's very different from the server environment. So we ended up developing boxes that replicate the server environment. So every time you're developing, you're developing in an environment that matches the server environment. So you're pretty sure that your code, if it runs in your local environment, it's definitely going to run on the server.
All right. I have another question. This is more a question around changing scenarios, changing requirements. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to adjust quickly to changes that you had no control over? And what was the impact of these changes on you and on the project? And how was that for you as an experience?
I do not have any specific scenario in mind to share about that at the moment.
So even as a software engineer, you've never like maybe started a project and then midway through it, your stakeholders come back and say, "Oh, we need to change all of this or this and that." You've never had a scenario like that?
We've had scenarios like that. Now that you put it in that way, we've had scenarios like that where it was shared, this was to be done, and you start working on it, and then midway, it completely changes. So I've experienced that. And that's actually in my last employment. I was working remotely for a company that's based in the US. It's a market that I wasn't completely aware about. So for me to develop a product, I really relied on a lot of information relayed to me. So I started building a product without sufficient information about what was intended to be achieved. And what we missed, the technical aspect was okay, but there was a legal implication that comes into the product. And then along the way, when this came through, then we had to change the way we were handling data, and that pushed the timeline for our product. So what we ended up doing to mitigate such things was to come up with a scope document that details what needs to be done, and then the request needs to sign on it and agree that these are the things we've agreed it's going to be developed, and then the engineer, product manager signs on it, and then so that they won't come in the middle of the implementation and say they want to change anything.
Awesome. And in terms of requirements always changing, what is your what I say mental approach towards them? Usually when you're working in an organization or on a project or in a corporate scenario, there's always the risk that things might change at any point. Even though maybe 90% of the project is scoped out, there's always be the room to add or remove something just because a critical stakeholder changes their mind or wants to add something else. Um, what's usually your approach when such a a request lands on your desk? Either as a PM or as an engineer. What's usually your thought process when a request like that lands on your table?
Sorry, I didn't get your last statement. My connection is unstable.
Oh, I was
As an
asking that.
engineer,
Yeah, so I was asking that when you're faced with a scenario where a stakeholder on the project comes to you and says, "Oh, I know we already agreed that these are the terms of reference and scope of work to be done, but we need to add or remove this." What's your typical process flow like in your head from the moment a message like that lands at your table?
yeah, so typically I'd look at the request and I want to assess what are the risks that are coming with the request. I look at the stage at which we are in, how much work we've already done, and I want to be able to understand how much is going to be affected by the request that is coming in. Sometimes the request can be an addition, which means a lot of our implementation doesn't need to change. But I also need to understand that if the request is going to significantly affect the current implementation, I need to understand how much is going to be affected and what needs to be done. And I also need to understand the risks that these changes bring on board. Is it going to affect the end product? Are the risks so significant that the assumptions we made at the beginning of the project are going to occur? So those are some of the things I try to think about, and basically it's how those changes are going to affect. Is it an addition? Is it necessitating a complete change? Should we need to completely start the project afresh? So those are some of the questions that come through my mind, and I have to go back and go through the process again.
Okay. Oh, thank you for that. And my final question. I want to probe a bit around pushing back. A lot of the answers I've got is a lot of you, taking on, whatever is asked of you. Have you had a scenario where, you got assigned a project or got given a task, and you had to push back and say no? And I want to just understand that scenario if you faced one, and what the experience is like for you working with stakeholders, collaborating with different teams, and making decisions on yes or no, and more importantly really pushing back, and why you push back when you do. I want to get an insight into a scenario like that if you have one.
Yeah, that's something that working as a software engineer, one really has to learn very early in their career, unless they want to completely stretch themselves to a point where spending the time on a project. So there are two instances. There is an instance where you're working on a project and you're approached to take on another task. So it's up to you to say yes or no. And then there is another instance where you're working on a project and there is this manager who's in the project and wants you to implement this thing in a certain way. But from your technical experience, you feel like that's not the best way to go about it. We should probably implement it in this way. So I've experienced both instances. In terms of the first one, so I'm working on a project and I've committed myself and I've said this project is going to be done in 1 week or 2 weeks. And within 2 weeks, I've buffered it enough just to take care of unexpected situations that can come up. And then I'm approached to take on another task. I think I will decline it politely, but then my reasoning will be I'm already in the middle of this project and it's significantly important if we compare it with the what I'm working on is significantly important. Sorry. Can you guys hear me?
I think your voice is going to be lower now.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Can others hear?
Daniel, we can't hear you. So if you could speak up, we'll appreciate it.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah, we
yes,
can hear
yes.
you.
Yeah, sorry, my headphones just running out of power. So yeah, I will compare the importance or the priority of the projects that I was working on. If what I'm working on is of higher priority, then I will decline the other project, considering I've already committed that I will deliver it in a given period of time.
Awesome. Okay. Do you have any questions for me?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
What do you consider as the most significant three skills an individual should have for them to be successful as a product manager?
Good question. Typically, there are two types of PMs. There are the technical PMs, who typically would come from like a, computer science background, or, information technology background. And then you have some other PMs that transition into program management. They come from diverse backgrounds. They could have studied anything: medicine, law, social sciences, psychology. If you go look at, LinkedIn profiles of PMs in Nigeria, or, around the world, you'd always see that pattern where some people, they transition into PM from, being from an ICT background, and then see the non-tech background folks as well transitioning. But you'd see that the career paths are quite similar, but still quite different. If you're going to be a technical PM, then you'd literally be sitting in between the business and the, and the engineering. And then as a non-technical PM, You be a program manager does just start into the technical details. So you probably be managing, you can be a program manager without being a program manager working on the engineering team. So there are program managers that don't work with engineering teams, but they're still program managers. And then there are the technical PMs, that work with engineering teams. And obviously, if you're going to be working with engineers, you need to speak their language. And it always helps when you have, an IT background or a technical background. So that's why it's potentially easier for maybe a software engineer to transition to like a technical PM because you're working on product building, and you've had previous experience building the product yourself. But instead of you building them yourself now, you're now working at the intersection of the business and the engineering teams to build all these awesome products. Looking at the three most critical skills for a PM, I would say um, hmm, I would say strong communication skills. PM is one of those roles where you have to have solid communication skills. You actually have to be an over communicator, to be a successful PM. So I think that's very, very critical, having strong communication skills, verbal, interpersonal, written, even down to, the first step being a PM is doing requirements gathering. And if you don't have strong listening skills, obviously you're going to miss out stuff. If you don't have strong communication skills, that means, you're not asking the right questions, you're not clarifying, you're assuming. So communication is big, 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 super critical to be successful as a PM. Second core skill I can think of right now. Um, oh, it's quite ironic. I'll call it project management skills. Just being able to be organized, to stay on top of things, always being in the middle of the action, always clarifying, always working with the business, always working with the engineering teams, or whoever's working on the product to make sure that all the all the right boxes and I's and T's are crossed and dotted. So I think that's super critical as well. My third major skill that I can think of for a PM would be being flexible. Um, at the workplace, contrary to what everybody learns theoretically, things are always changing every day. So just being flexible to changing requirements, being able to consistently adapt and evolve to the needs of the business. That's very important as well. Um, Customer obsession. Customer obsession is key. So being obsessed with a customer, and it doesn't have to be an external customer. Your customers can be internal. So depending on where you work, on the projects you're working on, your stakeholders might be external stakeholders, they might be internal stakeholders. So just being able to be obsessed with what the customer needs and wants, and then what their user experience is using your products. That'll be a good skill set to have. Um, Other soft skills would be like you know being able to make plans, being open to feedback. Some people take feedback personal, so just being open to feedback, being open to criticism, not being shy giving feedback as well. A successful PM is somebody that has a lot of confidence. They're not afraid to ask questions, they're not afraid to ask why. They're not afraid to break things down, put them back together, and evaluate scenarios. Using data. So if you cannot use data, using data as basically as an influencer for future behavior and predicting, for basically as the base of analytics, then that will be a problem. So data integrity is key. Good use of data, using data to influence decision makers, stakeholders, and projects. So yeah, I think I've given you more than three.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing all that. Working as a software engineer, you mostly get lost in the coding rabbit hole. But since I started thinking about pivoting, so I've started looking at ways to. I've started asking myself, why are we implementing this? Why are we doing this? And I try put myself in the customer's shoes, and I ask myself, a customer wants a dashboard that should be able to help them do A, B, C. So is what we're developing going to address that problem? So I've started getting myself out of the software engineering cocoon and just being able to push myself to understand who we are building this solution for.
Yeah, it's definitely different mentalities as a software engineer and as a PM. And if you're making that switch from one side to the other, even besides making a physical switch in job title, I think it's important to have a mental switch as well because the skill sets, the requirements, the habits, everything is different. So when you change, the t-shirt from being a software engineer to a PM, you should also remember to, make sure you pick up the attributes of what successful PMs have, not successful engineers. It's always good to have that background and always know where the engineering team are coming from. But also, now you're a PM, not an engineer anymore. So you need to also remember to think like a PM. Yeah, Grace, I'm not sure what next.
Yeah, I think Yomi has a question. I can see he has raised his hand.
Hi, Yomi.
Hey, Yinka, how's it going? Long time.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well. Not a question, just a comment. I just had one thing to add. I think you gave a lot of great tips for what a successful PM should look like. And I just wanted to add one thing. I think another key skill set, if you like, is risk management. I also sort of transitioned from a technical consultant to a PM, or what is popularly known as a functional consultant. And what I've come to find is that PM work is really a risk mitigation business, and you find that everything you deal with on a daily basis is managing risk, and the ability to foresee those risks in every part of the project and putting mitigation measures in place really solves what I would say is 90% of the problem, be it with your stakeholders, be it with managing slippages on your project plan, be it managing scope creeps, whatever it is. You know, risk management is usually front and center, and as much as you can have a very good grasp on that as well. I find it helpful in the long run. So I just wanted to add that to Yinka's tips.
Thank you, Yomi.
All right, thanks. Does anybody else have a question? Okay, I can see both Daniel and Wycliffe raise their hand. So let me allow Wycliffe to ask his question first.
Hi everyone, my name is Wycliffe and I'm a project manager. I've been doing it for the last 3 years. Besides that, I was doing a BA work. So I just want to add something towards what Yinka has mentioned. I believe that as a PM, mostly you find yourself that you might run a very successful project, but if you don't manage the other bit of change management, you realize that it doesn't become successful as you might want. So I think also that one should be very key. From experience, I've realized that yes, I might have come up with a very good product, but if I don't manage the change from the business point of view, and this is the customer, you realize that the customer doesn't appreciate what you have as a product. So I thought to add that it's very key, and I've seen it kind of derailing most projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Wycliffe.
All right, then, Daniel, you think you have something to say? So.
Yes, it's a good thing we have some people who've done project management in the call, and Yinka has experienced this for quite some time. So I'm curious. I would like to see a report card on how I performed. I don't know if that is in the program.
Yeah,
I would be interested in knowing some of the things I should improve so that next time I meet you in an interview, I will be an A candidate.
Great. So feedback, great session. You gave a lot of good answers with great insights. Um, I wasn't expecting to interview a technical PM, like somebody from a technical background. So I had more, non-technical questions. But even the good thing that I picked up as well, it's especially for looking at like a technical PM role. The fact that you come from a software engineering background puts you in a very, very poor position already. If I was looking to hire like an entry level PM or like a junior PM to, those kind of ranges. Anybody, if I was hiring a technical PM, at that level, anybody who already has prior experience, on the technical side, they already have a good leg in the door. Now, besides the technical side of things. On the non-technical, there are a lot of like attributes and soft skills that we look for that have been tested and tried to be successful attributes of a good PM. We already covered quite a few of them, like I said, with the tips. So if you can think back through all the questions I was asking you, um, a bit more critically, you realize that the non-technical questions you are really looking around, soft skills, collaboration, communication, being flexible, pushing back, stakeholder management. Um, what else? So there are a lot of soft skills, and if you look at the job description for a software engineer, for example, or for a program manager, you would see, besides the core technical requirements, when you look at the attributes that they look for, this ability to have the strong skills using sound judgment, ability to demonstrate maturity and intellectual curiosity, helping the team pursue the best ideas, being able to be critical, using sound judgment, to assess products and make technical decisions. Collaboration, being able to work effectively across teams, influencing stakeholders at all levels. There might be your peers, there might be, mentors, there might be, people that you're mentoring. How do you collaborate? And, the PM job is a collaborator's job. So if you don't know how to work with people, if you don't have good collaboration skills, it's going to be a struggle being a successful PM. I already said earlier about communication. Over communicating is important. Being able to iterate, communicate, technical ideas in simple, concise language, being able to, have multifaceted conversations with like, senior product and technical decision makers across an organization. You can conceptualize complex ideas quickly and convey to others, in a simple, clear, effective, motivating manner. Planning and execution, being able to, help the team work at a high level of delivering. Making sure the right partners are involved in decision making, planning, organizing, managing, complex technical products. Obviously, as you go lower in level, then these requirements are planning and executing. Even if you're working, for example, as maybe an organizer on a basketball team, and your job was to plan, the team's travel schedule, home and away games, training schedule, how many times a week you're training, what are the logistics you need to organize a successful training session. All these skills come in so many ways. You don't necessarily need to have sat down and worked as a PM, doing plan and execution of this PM for you to get your foot in the door, at an entry level PM role. So plan execution, you can deploy that soft skill in such a wide variety of areas, outside of a day job. And if you're looking for an entry level as a PM, for example, you can give examples of you planning and executing, not necessarily as a PM, but in other areas. You can show examples of how you showed strong communication skills, either from school, working on projects, working with your peers. There's many ways you can show you have good communication skills in an interview. Collaboration, working with people, being able to influence. There's many examples you can think of, even if you not have the direct experience in an office, doing collaborative work. Using sound judgment. When have you used data to, make decisions? When have you been able to use your ability to break complex situations down into simpler tasks, and then, using basically the using data and like sound judgment to make decisions. So all these five or four areas you just mentioned now. There are soft skills that you can build up in other areas, not necessarily as a PM. So for people that are looking to transition to PM roles, always think of examples around all these areas that you can give, even if you don't necessarily had a job as a PM before. Think of relevant examples you can give around these areas where you've worked with stakeholders, where you've, been responsible for communication within a team, or where you've collaborated with others, or when you've, planned and executed a project. Yeah. So projects are not necessarily, building sprints and, product development. Anything can be a project. If you're trying to find a new girlfriend or boyfriend, that's a project to correspond in a description. So yeah, it's there are a lot of soft skills that you have and that you use on a day-to-day basis in your personal life, in your professional life, that you might not necessarily think might relate to a role. But when you actually break it down and see what the key attributes and skill sets are, you'd see that you've actually done all these things without you even realizing. So for those looking to make the jump, don't have any anxiety. Just do a lot of scenario-based planning. Think of relevant examples that you can give from different areas from your experience, and you'll be fine.
Okay. I can see why Cliff has his hand raised. I don't know whether he wants to say something or he has a question. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Peter. Yeah, Peter.
All right, hi Yinka, hi Miss Grace.
Hi.
So
Hi.
I've been enjoying the conversation, and I've really been picking a lot. Okay, so not to say much, I just have a very quick question because I can say number one, I will call myself an accidental product manager. Why I say that is because it's not actually my field. Like I started with, okay, I'm more into the science aspect, but I found out, I got away into product management because of more of my leadership kind of engagements. All right, so now I'm working with a team. We call them Bitpower. It's a startup, and the CEO currently, I don't know, as his product manager, I found out that he's not the kind of person that, number one, he's not really the business oriented kind of a CEO. And for a while now, I've been having calls from some stakeholders saying, okay, they want to know more about the business, they want to, some other kind of customers. So I've been trying to gear up my aspect now as the PM, though I know I'm into more of the tech. I'm a kind of tech PM too, to be sincere, because I also had more knowledge in kind of technology as a software dev too. All right. So now me trying to transition more into the, what do you call it now? The business aspect, because the CEO I have currently is more of the dev person as well. So he finds it very difficult to listen to more of the business ideas, the business plan. And I also came to realize that when I joined, the kind of business person we have, the business development manager we have, she's not also the kind of person that understands her role very well. And I know that this is going to be like a kind of setback for the company. So I don't know how can I continue to convince him and the business person on that you guys are not really getting this thing correct. You're only thinking like tech guys. They only think about the tech, how they will build and maybe saying lovely and all that. But I discover the CEO is not himself. Is not really giving me the what do you call it now, the time and the reasons to give him more impact, like more influence on why we need to actually sit down more on the business part. So how do you feel I can come in to really make him readjust well? Because he's a tech person as well. So all he wants to do is just to build, build, build. And I know if we just keep on building and our business plan is not really well set, it's gonna crush everything. So how do I come in from there?
Good,
All right.
good question. Um, I think my first idea would be, or my first thought while you were, asking the question was numbers don't lie. When it comes to influencing stakeholders, data is key. Um, in my experience, you can talk, 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 talk all you want, but if they don't see numbers, if they don't see data, people you can't. Data doesn't lie. Numbers don't lie. So when it comes to influencing stakeholders, I think it's always important to use, back it up with data. When you back it up with data, it's very hard for them to push back on that and be against, the point you're making. So, whatever conversations you're having with them, back it up with data, bring your numbers, put your deck together, your slides, and put it in in writing in bold, and at that point we had to ignore. So always use data, especially when you're struggling with influencing during through normal channels. Stakeholders always appreciate data. So I think that'd be my advice. You influence with data, especially senior stakeholders. So try that approach, and if it doesn't work, then we'll find another idea. Open to other ideas too from the room.
All right, I get the gist. Yeah. So sorry, you've not answered the part of me trying to actually collaborate well with the CEO. In to see why the business aspect is still a very key thing in the organization.
Yeah, so that's what that ties into the data point I was making. So if you're trying to influence your CEO to take certain decisions, and there is pushing back against it, or is hesitant to even take it on board, then this way you have to set up a meeting. That's what I'm saying. You have to be able to have the confidence to take these steps. Set up a meeting, get all the relevant stakeholders in the room, put together a presentation, or maybe share it with him beforehand so he's not shocked. But call everybody into your room, schedule a meeting, and put together a deck that explains your position on why you think your idea is the right approach to go. And at that point, all the relevant stakeholders, if you know your idea is convincing, then I'm sure you get their buy-in. So I think don't be hesitant to put your stakeholders in a room. In Nigeria, we all get influenced by respect, and you're like, oh, that's my boss, Mr. This, or so you can't approach them, even though you can see a house on fire, but because somebody that's more senior to you has said there's no fire, but you can see it's burning. But because somebody senior to you says you can't see anything, there's no fire, there's no smoke, and everybody's like, well, the boss has said there's no smoke, so everybody should sleep. So if you have a dissenting opinion, or if you don't agree, that was also the point I was asking Daniel earlier about pushing back. Definitely don't be afraid to, get the right stakeholders together and make your point. It's also, put you two in a good light. Being able to take ownership of that situation, and pointing everybody in the right direction to see, why, what you're thinking would be the best idea. Is it the best idea? So definitely get the stakeholders together, communicate, and always use data to influence. And I think that'll work.
All right, that's cool. That's cool. Noted. Thanks.
No worries.
All right. Um, it's 3 o'clock. We should be rounding up the meeting now. So if there are no other questions, does anybody have any other question? Well, then I'd like to wrap up the meeting. First of all, I'd like to thank Yinka for taking the time out to handle this session today. I'm sure everybody has gained something from this meeting, and we'll surely look forward to working with you closely in the future. So at this point now, I think I can call the meeting to an end. I hope everybody has learned something and enjoyed this mock interview. So thank you all for attending.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here, and best of luck to all existing and aspiring PMs.
Thank you. All right then. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks
thanks.
very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.